Hi, everybody. We are here to talk about Virus 101. So just some basics about viruses, what they are, how they work, why, hand washing is important because everyone keeps saying, wash your hands. So viruses are really, really tiny. They can't replicate on their own. They can't make copies. They need a host to reproduce because they're only kind of alive. Biologists debate about all that all the time, but it doesn't really matter. Here's what matters. Sorry, excuse me. This is a red blood cell, so in our human body. And then see this little thing right here that looks like a pill? That's a bacteria. And bacteria and viruses are different things. We'll talk about that just a tiny bit. And so if you zoom in more on the bacteria, it's an E. coli bacteria. All the little hairy things are just flagella. They help the E. coli move. Not all bacteria can move on their own, but some can. Okay. And then see now, you can see all these little tiny things that were just dots before. Okay, if you zoom in even more, so this is the bacteria, and here's the ribosomes. Remember, ribosomes are the little machines that help bacteria make proteins. They help us make proteins. Look at how tiny a ribosome is, and look at how tiny some of these viruses are. Viruses don't even have their own ribosomes, so they can't make proteins. So viruses have to have a host to live, whereas bacteria can live just fine outside of our body for the most part, and we can live just fine. Don't even worry about the creepy spider-looking one because that's a virus that infects bacteria. It's called a bacteriophage. Don't even have to stress, can't infect your body. The porcupine or pufferfish one is a smallpox, which we've pretty much eradicated with vaccines. Here's polio, really tiny virus. So what viruses are is they're basically a little packet with genetic material inside. So it's genetic material. It could be RNA or it could be DNA. Like the influenza or HIV, those have RNA. Some viruses have DNA. So it's a little packet with genetic material. It's surrounded by a lipid envelope. Lipids are fats. Okay, and remember that because you'll need that for later. And then all these things on the outside are little proteins. Okay, the proteins determine a lot of things. They're really important for the virus. It's how we identify viruses and how we name them. For example, this is an influenza virus. Influenza has two different types of protein, hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, and that determines what type of influenza it is. So like you've heard of H1N1 and H3N2 and things like that. It's just the third version of hemagglutinin and the second version of neuraminidase. Okay. And so you've got this lipids around the genetic material and you've got some proteins on the surface. And the reason the proteins are so important, that's what the virus uses to attach to the host cell. So if the proteins on the surface don't match any of the cells in your body, that's a virus that can't attack you. Like when your dog licks your face, your dog certainly gives you viruses, but if they can't attach to any cells in your body, then you can't get sick. It's pretty awesome. Okay. So only viruses with the right little attachments can even get you sick. But those attachments, those proteins mutate rapidly. So that's why, for example, we've got all the different strains of flu and why you can get different types of influenza, because if the influenza has mutated, then you can get a new version. Okay, so this is a video of HIV. And this is showing HIV and the little proteins. And see how the proteins attaching to something on the surface of the cell? All of our cells have receptors on them. The receptors are for things that we want in our cell, like different signaling molecules that tell our cell information and help our body do its job. Okay, and the virus hijacks that. It's kind of like the key to your house. Like you've got keys to get into your house so you can, live in your house. Well, if somebody steals an extra copy of the key to your house, they can get inside too. And that's what happens here with a virus is their proteins mimic a protein that you have that can dock on a receptor to get into your cell. And that's how viruses can infect your cell. But that protein has to be something that can dock on your body. And so to get a disease, to get a virus from another species of animal, there has to be mutations in that proteins to allow that protein to dock in your body. Okay, so why does hand washing help so much? And does hand sanitizer work too? Okay, remember how I talked about the lipid bilayer? It's the fatty layer that's around viruses. It's also around bacteria. Well, hand sanitizer helps because it can break open that lipid bilayer. That'll kill bacteria and it'll make viruses not really effective. But sanitizer just leaves all that stuff on your hand. Like, those things don't go away with hand sanitizer. It's like bacteria that's dead sitting on your hand. And the hand sanitizer might not kill every single bacteria or destroy every single virus. The reason why hand washing is important and why we say, yeah, sanitizer is good, hand washing is better, is because the soap molecules will help disrupt the fat, so that can help lift away the bacteria and the viruses, but it'll also lift up any dirt on your hands, and bacteria and viruses can attach to that dirt, and then it'll lift that away, and then when you wash off your soapy hands, that rinses everything down the drain. And so that gets that bacteria and that virus off your hand in general, which is the ideal, right? So remember, again, that lipid layer around viruses and bacteria is a fat. And so it's just like, you know how you use dish soap on greasy dishes to help cut the fat? That's what we're doing when we wash our hands. You want to wash your hands always, always, always before you eat. I cannot emphasize this enough, because when you eat, you are touching your face. You want clean hands for that. You need to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom, because there's something called the fecal-oral transmission. Even if you did not poop, there's fecal material in bathrooms. Even your bathroom at home, I hate to break it to you, there's fecal material lots of places. It happens when you flush the toilet, stuff like that. So you want to wash your hands to limit that fecal-oral transmission. A lot of viruses can be found in fecal material, and you want to limit that. Okay. After you sneeze or you cough, you want to wash your hands. It's great if you covered your cough or covered your sneeze so that you're not spreading droplets everywhere. But if you sneeze in your hands, or even if you sneeze into a Kleenex, you still got those germs on your hands. Even if you sneezed into your elbow, there's still germs there. So you want to make sure you're washing your clothes too. And before you touch your face, there's a lot of research that shows that touching your face is a major spread of germs, because you touch surfaces and then you bring the germs to your face. Different germs like bacteria and viruses get in through what are called your mucous membranes. So that's your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And so you want to make sure that you're getting as little transmission up there as you can. So try not to touch your face, even though whenever we talk about touching our face, all of a sudden you notice that your eyebrow, for example, is very itchy. Try not to touch your face. Okay, when you wash your hands, remember that you need to do the soap part for 20 seconds. Not just washing for 20 seconds. You need the soap for 20 seconds, and you really want to scrub. You want to get between your fingers. You want to do the backs of your hands, around your wrists. Thumbs are a good point. Kind of do this with your palms so that you're getting your nails clean. Try to get your nails. Depends on how thorough you want to be. The longer you can do this, the better. Well, okay. To a point, the longer you wash your hands, you're better. There's a point at which you've washed your hands too much and you're damaging your skin. So please be careful not to do that. This shows, this is Glow Germ, and so it's a powder that will glow under UV light. And look at how much less this person's hands glow when they've done 30 seconds of soap. Is there still a little bit of glowing? Yeah, there is a tiny bit of glowing. You're never going to get every bacteria off. I hate to break it to you, but you're trying to get most of it off to reduce the transmission. And here's not washing at all. Here's that rinse and shake. That doesn't help hardly at all. Even washing for 6 seconds, even if you don't have soap, helps some. It got some of the germs off her hands. 6 seconds with soap helps a lot more. 15 seconds helps more. 30 seconds is even more. So I would say, try to aim for that 20 to 30 seconds for hand washing. Okay, a few more virus transmission facts. Viruses can live on surfaces like your cell phone. Scientists call these fomites, and you want to clean off fomites. You want to wash off, especially things that we touch a lot, like door handles and light switches. You want to wash those with a disinfectant wipe or spray. You do want the surface to be wet for a couple minutes, because you need a wet surface with these chemicals actually acting to be able to kill viruses. Okay, so just make sure you're cleaning things regularly. And again, wash your hands, because you're touching these things all day long and sometimes you can't clean them. So just wash your hands. You don't need to be paranoid about cleaning every surface if you just wash your hands before you eat or before you touch your face. So basically, often you get viruses from touching a surface and touching your face. You can also get bacteria the same way. Oh, and a reminder, I said I'd talk about this. The differences between viruses and bacteria, again, remember bacteria can live on its own and viruses need a host to replicate. Bacteria are a lot bigger, viruses are tiny. And then the other big thing is this, antibiotics only work on bacteria. So if you get a viral disease like a cold or influenza or the new COVID-19, antibiotics will not help you. Okay, we touch our faces a lot. The stats vary. I tried to do some reading about this to see what research had been done, and it varies from like 2 to 3 times a minute to hundreds of times an hour to just 2 to 3 times an hour. It depends on the person. Just know that we all touch our faces a lot. It's been hard for me not to touch my face while I'm doing this. Okay, so how do viruses transmit? Oftentimes they transmit in droplets. Okay, measles is an airborne virus, which means like you sneeze in an area and you have measles. Someone walking through an hour or two later could still get that because measles hangs out in the air for a while. Something like Ebola is heavier and it'll drop in droplets. So if a droplet lands on a surface though, you touch the surface, you might get that virus when you then touch your face. Okay, and the best we know so far is that the current novel coronavirus is droplet transmission. And so when people cough or sneeze, those droplets get on surfaces, on fomites, and then you touch the desk or the table or the pen or whatever, and then transmit that to yourself. This is a gross picture of somebody sneezing, but that's really what it looks like. We don't see that when people sneeze because it's not like lit up perfectly. This is lit to do that, but people really do spew a lot of droplets when they sneeze. So the way to protect yourself is to cover your cough. So if you've got a Kleenex available, awesome. Cover your mouth that, throw it away, and then wash your hands because even with the Kleenex, some germs will still come through onto your hands. You still have stuff on your hands. And then the other way is if you don't have access to a tissue or if you know you're not going to be able to wash your hands for a little bit, sneeze or cough into your elbow and then make sure you're washing your clothes regularly. Like if you have someone at home who gets sick very easily or is immunosuppressed, like has cancer or has some other illness, you want to wash your clothes, like you want to take your clothes off when you get home and put clean clothes on, just so you're not transferring that illness to them. And again, wash your hands well when you've coughed or sneezed. Okay, this is a picture of coronavirus. We call it coronavirus because all those little Shrek-like knobby things look kind of like a crown around the virus. Okay, and this one is novel coronavirus. Coronaviruses have been around all the time. They cause like 10 to 15% of the common cold, along with 2 other viruses, adenovirus and rhinoviruses, which also cause a lot of colds. So it's not that coronavirus itself is new, it's that this version is new and we don't know a lot about it. And this version seems to be just a little bit concerning. Not amazingly concerning. It's not like Ebola that kills half the people who catch it, but some people have died from this coronavirus and it spreads pretty easily, so we want to be cautious. Okay, so here's the big deal why we should care is see these 2 different curves. There's the blue one and the orange one, and just watch it for a second. So see how the curves are both about the same size, which means about the same number of people are getting infected. But this first dude who's like, whatever, it's just a cold or flu, those are people who are just going out and living their life. And they're like, whatever, it's just an illness. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to go to the grocery store. It doesn't matter that I'm sick. Like, who cares? Not a big deal, right? Well, remember that coronavirus passes quickly. And for most of us, it will just be an annoying cold or feel like the flu because it is a cold but with a fever. Okay? But some people who are older or who have lung issues, like if someone has cystic fibrosis or if they're a heavy smoker or a heavy vapor, vaping also can damage your lungs. Those sorts of people might have to go to the hospital. And the problem is when we get up here above the dotted line that shows healthcare system capacity. And so the x-axis here is time since first case and the y-axis is number of cases. We want to spread out the number of cases. Even if we have the same number of cases, we want them spread out over time. If everybody gets sick all the way right at the start, some of those people will have to go to the hospital. And then if the hospital gets full, they have to make really awful decisions about who they take care of and who they try to send somewhere else or they send back home. It's called triage. And they have to make these decisions based on who they think will get the best probability of recovering giving treatment. So if somebody's really sick and they're like, well, I probably could save you, but our beds are full. Or you're not that sick yet. Go back home and come back if you get sicker, right? Those are decisions you have to make when hospitals are really full. But if we can get to the orange curve where people stay home when they're sick, if you're coughing or sneezing, just stay at home for a couple days. Make sure you don't have coronavirus. Wash your hands so that you're not spreading the illness or that you're not picking it up from somebody else who has the illness. And even if the same number of people get coronavirus, but we can spread it out over a longer time period, that gives the hospitals time to deal with this. It gives doctors and nurses time to know, like, oh, okay, these treatments work and these treatments don't work. So it helps people survive better by spreading out the time infections. So that's why there's quarantine measures in place. That's why China, South Korea, Japan, but also Italy, the Seattle area in the United States, that's why all of these places have done quarantine, is they're trying to make it harder for people to pass the illness. It's not that it's a horrible illness, but if we can slow down the rate of the transmission more, kind of flatten out how people are passing it, that gives our healthcare system a lot more time and energy to respond, not just to people with coronavirus, but also people who are hurt or ill for other reasons. You know, how awful would it be to go into a hospital because you're having a baby and they're like, literally all our beds are full and so you can't have the baby at the hospital. Or, you know, you got a gunshot wound, but they're like, a bunch of our surgeons are out sick right now because they all got coronavirus after taking care of all these people. And it's like, but you need surgery. So we want to try to overload or try to not overload our hospitals for a variety of reasons. To have care for the people who are really sick and need respirators and breathing machines and things like that. And also care for people with completely different illnesses who need help. Just a reminder that a lot of diseases come from animals. Remember that most animals have diseases that don't ever bother us. Your dog licks your face, but you can't get the virus because the key on that virus doesn't match any of the locks in your body, and so it can't get in. But there's two mutations that can happen to make animal diseases or zoonotic diseases problematic for humans. One, you need a mutation so that the proteins on that virus surface can infect your cells. Okay, so that's the first mutation, and that's how a human can get sick from an animal. And you actually need a second mutation where that human can pass that disease to other humans, human to human transmission. You know, that was a concern like with bird flu, is that we had humans getting sick from birds. But then one of the times bird flu came around, no one else could get sick from those humans. Sorry, I had to sneeze and then I didn't. No one else can get sick from those humans, and so then it's not a big deal at all. It's a trouble just for the people who got sick from the animals. But if you have a disease where it mutates to infect humans and then one human can infect another, that's when you have problematic diseases that get passed on. Like, for example, Ebola that came from chimpanzees and hantavirus that comes from rats and things like that. Remember that viruses come from all over the world. I know sometimes people say, oh yeah, but a lot come from China. Well, China is the most populated country in the world. It makes sense that a slightly higher percent of viruses would come from there. But we do. We have viruses that come from Africa. We have viruses that come from South America and North America. Hantavirus is a North American virus. We have viruses that come from all around the world. Turtles have salmonella. Like, have you ever heard after you touch a turtle, make sure you wash your hands so you don't get salmonella? So all of those are issues, and I want you to know that getting diseases from animals is nothing new. It's happened before. It will continue to happen again. Why we are concerned right now about coronavirus or COVID-19 is because we don't know enough about it. We're still learning, and we're taking all these measures that might seem really serious to make sure it doesn't get really bad. So that's why we ask you to take these things seriously, wash your hands, things like that, to make sure this virus doesn't get bad. I do want to remind you that coronavirus does not care what color your skin is, how much money you make, where you came from in the world. Anybody can get a virus. No virus cares at all, right? And then, are you going to die? Probably not. Are you going to get coronavirus? Probably not. Do you need a mask? No, you do not need a mask unless you are sick. Different cultures have different views on that, but the CDC has told Americans wait and only wear a mask if you are coughing or sneezing. Um, there's a lot of misinformation out there, so make sure you're checking your sources and finding good information. If it seems a little too wild and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's true, go double check a couple more sources and see if you can find it. Okay. A reminder too, seasonal flu a couple years ago killed 61,000 people. So far, coronavirus has killed less than 4,000 as of March 9th. It might end up being more. Coronavirus might end up being really bad. It might not. But we're trying to be cautious now so that it doesn't get really bad. So, you know, it's worth being concerned about, but it's not worth losing sleep over. In fact, get extra sleep because that helps your immune system too, being well rested. So remember, wash your hands, especially before you eat. Wash your hands, get good sleep, and take care of yourself and be kind to other people because illnesses are one of those things that's really hard for people to control, and people are nervous and worried right now. So a little kindness in our world can only help. So thank you so much. I hope that answers some of your questions about viruses. Have a nice day.